Welcome back to Sarah Werewolf Romance Collection, where the alphas are fierce, but the heroines always bite back. Quick question for my fellow Romantasy lovers before we dive into today's drama. What is your go-to snack or drink when you're settling in for a good audiobook? Let me know in the comments, and drop a paw print emoji if you've ever wanted to spray an arrogant alpha with a squirt bottle. Today we have a hilarious and tense one. It involves a very grumpy wolf leader, a stubborn dog groomer, and a bright pink bottle of detangler soap. But before we start, if you want to support the channel and get early access to stories like this, plus unlock our exclusive channel badges, hit that join button down below. It helps keep the magic flowing and the stories coming. Now, get comfortable. The grooming shop is open, and the alpha is about to get washed. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. Ivy wipes sweat from her forehead with the back of her wrist, careful to avoid the smudge of dog shampoo resting right over her freckles. She held the squirming husky steady on the metal grooming table. The dog let out a dramatic, mournful howl. She clicked her tongue twice. The husky stopped thrashing and stared at her. "Good boy," Ivy said. She picked up the nozzle and blasted him with warm water. The high-speed blow-dryer at the next station screamed over the local radio station, playing from a paint-splattered boombox. Water splashed the front of her faded denim overalls and plain white t-shirt. She adjusted the plastic claw clip holding her messy auburn hair up off her neck. Outside the shop window, she saw a sleek, midnight blue sedan pull up to the curb, parking right behind her rusted, cherry red, and primer gray pickup truck. The bell above the shop door chimed. A man stepped inside. The noisy salon felt different the moment his boots hit the linoleum. The husky whined and tucked its tail between its legs. Ivy turned off the water. She wiped her soapy hands on her apron. Her neon pink plastic spray bottle, filled with water and detangler, bumped against her hip on its front loop. The man did not belong in a grooming salon. He wore a luxurious charcoal gray suit that looked fresh from a tailor and polished black leather shoes. His broad shoulders filled the doorway. Dark hair swept back neat and perfect from his forehead. Piercing amber eyes locked onto her face. Leo. The alpha. He stepped forward. His shoes avoided the puddles on the floor. He reached into his inner jacket pocket. A high-end smartphone buzzed in his hand. He silenced it with a tap of his thumb and shoved it back inside his coat. He wore a heavy silver pack ring with a sapphire crest on his right hand. "Turn off the machines," Leo said. His voice rumbled low and rough in his chest. "You disrupt my pack meeting next door." Ivy stood her ground. Her waterproof yellow rubber boots squeaked against the wet floor as she shifted her weight. "This is a grooming salon. We wash dogs. We use dryers. We make noise." Leo narrowed his eyes. He stepped closer. His size made most people take a step back and lower their heads. Ivy stayed right where she was. "I am running business for this town," Leo said. He tried his alpha command voice. It boomed through the small shop. To a wolf, it demanded submission. To Ivy, it just sounded like a loud, rude shout. "And I am running a business right here," Ivy shot back. "My rent is paid. My dryers stay on." Leo moved into her space. He backed her toward the tiled wall behind the deep washing tubs. The scent of sandalwood and fresh rain hit her nose, cutting through the smell of wet fur and soap. He braced a hand on the wet tiles right beside her head, trapping her. He leaned down. He put his face inches from hers. His chest vibrated. A deep, terrifying, warning growl tore from his throat, meant to strike fear into her bones. Ivy looked him right in the eye. She did not flinch. Does he really think a deep voice makes him a king? She let out a short, bright laugh. "You sound like a happy house cat," she said. "Do you want a saucer of milk?" Leo froze. The growl died in his throat. He blinked, staring at her in shock. His mouth parted, but no words came out. His right index finger started to tap against his thigh. The big, bad alpha had no idea what to do with a woman who laughed at his teeth. Ivy reached down and unhooked the neon pink plastic spray bottle from her apron loop. She held it up and pressed the plastic nozzle right into the center of his expensive chest. "Make me do it again," Leo whispered. His voice lacked the boom from before. It sounded rough and tight. "Take this," Ivy said, ignoring his warning. She shoved the bottle into his large hand. "If my dryers bother you that much, you can come back over and spray me. Until then, I have a husky to finish washing. Move." Leo stared at the bright pink bottle in his grip. He looked at the bottle, then looked back at Ivy's stubborn face. He turned around and walked out the door without another word. Chapter 2. Leo sat behind the steering wheel of his midnight blue sedan. He stared at the neon pink spray bottle resting in his cup holder. 10 minutes had passed since he left the grooming shop. He needed to go back inside. He needed an excuse to talk to the human who mocked his warning growl. He looked out the tinted window and spotted a shape moving near the alley dumpsters. A bulldog rooted through a pile of discarded food wrappers. The dog was short, wide, and covered nose to tail in thick, foul-smelling gray mud. Leo grinned. He grabbed the neon pink spray bottle from his cup holder, opened his car door, and walked into the alley. He approached the stray. The bulldog looked up and let out a grumbling bark. Leo crouched down. He scooped the heavy, mud-caked animal into his left arm, holding the pink bottle in his right hand. The dog squirmed, wiping wet mud across his charcoal gray lapel. Leo walked straight to the grooming salon and pushed the front door open. Ivy stood near the front counter. She held a pocket-sized tin of beeswax paw balm. She dipped her fingers into the tin and rubbed the wax into a small terrier's paws. When she heard the door chime, she looked up. She saw Leo standing on her clean floor. He held a filthy, grumpy bulldog against his ruined suit jacket, and he set her neon pink spray bottle right onto the edge of the counter. "I found a dog," Leo said. He tried to sound casual. Ivy closed the small tin and slid it back into the left pocket of her denim overalls. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked out from behind the counter. She looked at the bulldog, then looked at the mud smeared across Leo's chest. "You found a dog," Ivy repeated. "Or you went digging in the trash just to find a reason to come back in here." Why does she look at me like a nuisance instead of a threat? "He needs a bath," Leo said, ignoring her question. He set the bulldog down. The dog immediately shook its body, sending drops of foul mud flying onto the clean display shelves. "His name is Sly," Leo added, pointing at the dog. Ivy crossed her arms. Her yellow rubber boots squeaked as she knelt to inspect the animal. She clicked her tongue twice. Sly trotted right over to her and sat on her boot. He looked up at her with big, round eyes. "He likes you," Leo pointed out. He shifted his weight from one polished shoe to the other. "Animals know when they are safe," Ivy said. She stood up and walked behind the cash register. "I will wash him. I will trim his nails. I will get the mud out of his ears. But it comes with a steep price." Leo pulled a sleek leather wallet from his back pocket. "Money is not an issue. Name your price." $200, Ivy said. She leaned on the counter. "Up front, plus a $50 nuisance fee because you tracked mud onto my clean floor." Leo did not blink. He pulled 3 crisp $100 bills from his wallet and placed them on the counter. He pushed the money toward her. He rested his hand on the counter, showing off the heavy silver pack ring on his finger. "Keep the change," Leo told her. "I do not want your charity," Ivy said. She opened the register, grabbed a $50 bill, and shoved it back into his hand. "I run a fair business. I take what I earn." Leo looked at the bill in his palm. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "When can I pick him up?" 2 hours, Ivy said. She reached down and scooped Sly into her arms. The heavy bulldog rested its muddy head on her shoulder. "And next time you want to see me, just walk through the door. You do not need to kidnap a stray animal from the alley." Leo watched her carry the dog toward the washing tubs. He turned toward the door, feeling a strange jolt in his chest. The alpha of the town had just been ordered around by a dog groomer. He realized he liked it. Chapter 3. The morning rush at the local diner brought a long line of hungry people. Ivy stood near the back of the line, staring at the menu board. She wore her faded denim overalls, but she left her yellow rubber boots at the shop, opting for comfortable canvas sneakers instead. She needed caffeine before her first appointment. The diner door swung open. A large man pushed his way inside. Ivy recognized him right away. Finn. He belonged to Leo's pack. He had a reputation for throwing his weight around town and treating humans like dirt. Finn ignored the line. He walked straight to the front, stepping in front of an older woman waiting to order. "Move," Finn grunted at the woman. He slapped his hand on the counter. "I need black coffee and a dozen eggs. Make it fast." Ivy felt her temper flare. She stepped out of the line and walked right up to the front counter. She bumped her shoulder hard against Finn's arm, forcing him to take a step back. "Hey," Finn snapped. He glared down at her. "Watch it, human." "The line starts back by the door, buddy," Ivy said. She pointed a thumb over her shoulder. "Get to the back." Finn let out a harsh laugh. "Do you know who I am? I don't wait in lines." "I know exactly who you are," Ivy told him, her voice loud and clear. "You are a guy who thinks skipping a line makes him tough. It just makes you look like a jerk. Go to the back before I call Ava to throw you out." Finn bared his teeth. A low rumble started in his chest. He took a step toward Ivy, trying to use his size to scare her. Ivy rolled her eyes. "Stop making animal noises at me." "It does not work on me, and it is annoying everyone trying to eat breakfast." "I just want to drink my coffee, not deal with a furry temper tantrum." Before Finn could say another word, a heavy hand clamped down on his shoulder. Leo stood right behind Finn. He wore a fresh charcoal gray suit and his polished black shoes. His amber eyes burned with warning. He gripped Finn's shoulder tight enough to make the larger man wince. "She told you to go to the back of the line, Finn," Leo said. His voice stayed low, but it carried a sharp edge that cut through the diner noise. Finn's face dropped. He looked at Leo, then looked down at his feet. "Yes, Alpha." Finn turned around and walked out the front door, leaving his breakfast order behind. Leo let out a breath and turned to Ivy. He let go of Finn's shoulder and shoved his hands into his suit pockets. "He needs to learn manners." "I was handling him just fine," Ivy pointed out. She turned back to the cashier and ordered her large black coffee. She paid her bill and grabbed her cup off the counter. "I know you were," Leo said. He walked beside her as she headed toward a small booth in the corner. "You do not back down from anyone, do you?" "Bullies only win if you let them," Ivy said. She sat down in the booth and took a sip of her hot coffee. Leo slid into the seat across from her. He placed his large hands on the table. The sapphire stone on his silver ring caught the diner lights. He stared at her freckles, tracing the line of them across her nose with his eyes. "I came to pick up Sly's new leash," Leo said. offering an excuse for being in town so early. "Sly is doing great," Ivy said. "He ate a whole bowl of kibble and slept on the floor mats. You actually have to take care of him now, you know. He is your responsibility." "I take care of what is mine," Leo said. He kept his eyes locked on hers. The air between them shifted, growing thick and heavy. Ivy swallowed hard and looked away, focusing on her coffee cup. The big alpha was starting to become a real problem. Chapter 4. The sun vanished, leaving the streets outside the grooming salon dark and empty. Ivy stayed late to clean the washing tubs. She scrubbed the metal grates, thankful that Sly the bulldog was already fast asleep behind the closed door of the break room. Her faded overalls carried wet stains. Her neon pink spray bottle hung on her apron loop, knocking against her leg as she moved. A loud thud hit the front of the shop. Ivy stopped scrubbing. She looked toward the front of the store. A man stood on the sidewalk, staring through the large glass window. He wore torn jeans and a dirty flannel shirt. His face looked wild, and his eyes held a frantic, dangerous shine. Ash, a rogue wolf from a rival pack. Ivy wiped her hands on her apron. She walked toward the front counter, keeping her distance from the glass. "The shop is closed," she called out. "Come back tomorrow." Ash smiled. It looked more like a snarl. He raised his fist and slammed it against the thick glass. The pane shuddered. "I smell the alpha on this place," Ash shouted. His voice sounded raw and broken. "He claims this territory. I am taking it from him." "Take it somewhere else," Ivy yelled back. She reached down and unhooked her pink spray bottle. She gripped the plastic neck tight. Ash did not listen. He took a step back, lowered his shoulder, and threw his entire body weight into the front door. The glass shattered. A loud crash echoed through the shop. Sharp pieces of glass exploded across the clean linoleum floor. The metal door frame bent inward, ruined beyond repair. Cold night wind rushed into the warm room. Ash stumbled through the broken frame. He crushed glass under his boots. He locked his wild eyes on Ivy and lunged forward. Ivy stood her ground. She raised the pink plastic spray bottle and aimed right for his face. She pulled the trigger 3 times in rapid succession. The mix of water and detangling soap sprayed directly into Ash's eyes. Ash screamed. He slapped his hands over his face, blinded by the burning soap. He stumbled backward, knocking over a display of dog treats. Before Ash could wipe his eyes, a midnight blue sedan screeched to a halt outside. The tires smoked against the pavement. Leo threw his car door open. He moved faster than a human ever could. He cleared the broken doorway in 1 step. He grabbed Ash by the collar of his dirty flannel shirt and lifted him clean off his feet. "You do not touch my town," Leo roared. Leo threw Ash out the shattered door. Ash hit the sidewalk hard. Leo stepped out after him. The 2 men crashed onto the pavement. Leo did not shift into his wolf form, but his strength was obvious. He landed a heavy punch to Ash's jaw. Ash scrambled to his feet, spitting blood, and ran down the dark alley, fleeing into the night. Leo watched him run. He took a deep breath, calming his racing chest. He turned around and walked back through the broken doorframe, crushing glass beneath his polished shoes. He looked at Ivy. She stood behind the counter, still holding her pink spray bottle. Her hands shook just a little, but her face remained stubborn and brave. "I will tear anyone apart who tries to lay a finger on her." "Are you hurt?" Leo asked. He stepped over the ruined door and moved close to her. He scanned her arms and face for any cuts from the flying glass. "I am fine," Ivy said. She set the spray bottle down on the counter. She looked at the giant hole in the front of her shop. The wind blew her auburn hair around her face. "My door is broken." "I will fix it," Leo promised. His voice held a solid, unbreakable vow. "I am not leaving you alone." Chapter 5. The cold night wind swept through the gaping hole where the front door used to be. Ivy shivered. She rubbed her arms through her plain white t-shirt. The heater in the shop kicked on, but it stood no chance against the open air. Glass covered the floor like ice. Leo stood in the center of the ruin. He looked at the broken frame. A door could not just be pushed back into place. It was ruined. It required physical work and new materials to secure the building for the night. "Where do you keep your tools?" Leo asked. "Back room," Ivy said, pointing toward the hallway. "I have a hammer and some nails. There are 2 large pieces of plywood leaning against the back fence." Leo nodded. He took off his luxurious charcoal gray suit jacket. He tossed the expensive coat over the front counter, right next to the cash register. He rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white dress shirt, exposing thick forearms. He walked to the back, his polished black shoes crunching over the glass. Ivy went to the supply closet and grabbed a heavy push broom. She started sweeping the sharp shards into a pile, keeping her yellow boots clear of the danger. Leo returned carrying a heavy sheet of thick plywood. He held it with one hand like it weighed nothing. He went back out and retrieved the second sheet, along with a rusted hammer and a box of long nails. "Stand back," Leo instructed. Ivy leaned on her broom and watched him work. Leo lifted the first sheet of plywood and pressed it against the outside of the broken frame. He grabbed a nail, held it in place, and swung the hammer. The loud bang echoed down the empty street. He drove the nail deep into the wood with a single hit. He worked in silence. He did not complain about the cold. He did not care that sawdust and dirt smeared across his clean white shirt. He swung the hammer with steady, brutal force, securing the heavy wood over the ruined entrance until the wind stopped howling into the room. When he finished, he stepped back inside through a small gap, then nailed the final board over the opening from the inside, sealing them in. The shop grew quiet. The heater finally started to warm the room. Leo dropped the hammer onto the counter. He wiped sweat from his brow. He looked at his ruined white shirt, then picked up his suit jacket. Wood splinters snagged the fine fabric. Ivy walked over to him. She pulled the pocket-sized tin of beeswax paw balm from her overall pocket, rubbing her thumb over the lid. She looked at the dirt on his clothes and the fierce, protective look in his amber eyes. Is the big, scary alpha actually nervous right now? "You ruined your suit," Ivy pointed out. Her voice sounded softer than usual. "I have other suits," Leo replied. He tossed the jacket back onto the counter. He took a step toward her. The space between them felt small in the boarded-up shop. The scent of sandalwood mixed with the smell of sawdust. "You did not have to do that," Ivy told him. "I could have boarded it up myself." "I know you could," Leo said. He reached out. His large hand hovered near her face. He used his thumb to gently wipe a speck of drywall dust off her cheek, right next to her freckles. His touch felt hot against her skin. "But you do not have to do everything alone." Ivy swallowed hard. She did not pull away from his touch. She looked up at his face. The cocky alpha from the first day was gone. In his place stood a man who just ruined his best clothes to keep her safe from the cold. "My truck is parked out back," Ivy whispered. "The cherry red one. I need a ride home. The heater is broken." Leo let his hand drop. He picked up his jacket. "My car's warm. Let's go." Chapter 6. Morning sunlight hit the cracked pavement of the back alley. Ivy parked her rusted, cherry red and primer gray pickup truck near the dumpsters. She turned the key. The engine choked and died with a loud, protesting sputter. The heater had remained broken all the way from her house, leaving her fingers stiff from the cold. She grabbed her keys and climbed out, her waterproof yellow rubber boots splashing into a shallow mud puddle. She walked toward the heavy metal back door of the grooming salon. The front entrance remained useless. Thick sheets of plywood covered the shattered glass in the bent metal frame, turning the bright lobby into a dark, shadowed cave. Cold drafts leaked through the rough gaps Leo left behind during his late-night repair. She shoved her key into the deadbolt and pushed the metal door open. Sly the bulldog met her in the break room. He let out a happy grunt, wiggling his wide body and stomping his front paws. Ivy crouched and scratched behind his ears. She reached into her left overall pocket, tracing the smooth edges of her pocket-sized tin of beeswax paw balm to ensure it was still there. "Good morning, buddy," she said. She grabbed a plastic scoop from a heavy bag and filled his bowl with fresh kibble. The loud crunching sounds echoed in the quiet shop. The front bell could not chime without a door, but Ivy heard a sharp, urgent knock on the plywood boards. She walked out to the front lobby. Her neon pink spray bottle sat exactly where she left it on the front counter. Ava stood on the sidewalk outside, peering through a small gap in the wood. Ivy walked over, pushed the heavy latch on the side door, and let her boss step inside. Ava wore a thick wool winter coat. She clutched a standard manila folder tight against her chest. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor, refusing to meet Ivy's eyes. "The front looks terrible," Ava muttered. She stepped around the ruined display of dog treats still scattered across the linoleum tiles. "A rogue wolf tried to break in last night," Ivy explained, picking up the heavy push broom. "Leo boarded it up for me." Ava flinched at the alpha's name. She walked to the register and set her folder down. She tapped her fingers against the cardboard cover. "I am retiring, Ivy. You know this. We talked about you buying the shop from me." "I have the down payment ready," Ivy said. A tight knot formed in her stomach. She did not like the nervous shift in Ava's shoulders or the way her boss avoided eye contact. "The building is not for sale anymore," Ava stated. She opened the folder and slid a single sheet of printed paper across the counter. "I am keeping the deed, and I am raising the rent." Ivy stopped sweeping. She leaned the broom against the wall and looked at the paper. The new monthly rate stared back at her in bold ink. The number was a steep, luxury fee meant for a high-end jewelry boutique, not a small pet salon. It was a clear, direct path to bankruptcy. She could never pay that amount washing dogs. "This is a joke," Ivy said. She pushed the paper back across the counter. "You know I cannot afford this rate." "Then you have to pack up your equipment and leave by the end of the month," Ava said. Her voice wavered. She looked down at the toes of her boots. Ivy narrowed her eyes. She thought about the rogue wolf, the ruined door frame, and Finn acting tough at the diner. The pack was making aggressive moves. "Who put you up to this?" Ivy asked. Ava shook her head, keeping her mouth shut tight. "Tell me," Ivy demanded. She crossed her arms over her faded denim overalls. Ava let out a shaky breath. "Elder Cole visited my house last night. He offered me a rich cash bonus. He told me to raise your rent to a premium rate you could never match. He wants you out of this town, Ivy. He said humans do not belong near the Alpha. They are trying to steal my life just to keep their political game pure." Ivy picked up the paper again. She folded it in half with sharp, precise creases. She felt a harsh sting of betrayal. She had worked inside these walls since she was a teenager. "I am not leaving," Ivy stated. She tucked the folded paper into the front pocket of her overalls. Cole is powerful, Ava warned, zipping up her coat. You cannot fight the pack elders. I am not fighting the elders, Ivy replied. I am fighting a greedy old man who thinks he can bully me. I will find a way to pay the rent this month. I always do. Ava shook her head and walked out the side door, leaving Ivy alone in the dark, boarded-up shop. Ivy looked at the bent metal doorframe. She clicked her tongue twice. Sly trotted into the room and sat heavy on her yellow boot. She needed a solid plan, and she needed one fast. Chapter 7. Later that afternoon, the salon hummed with chaotic energy. Ivy stood at the metal washing tub, finishing up a hyperactive golden retriever. The high-speed blow-dryer whined, filling the small room with a deafening roar. Water splashed over the edge of the tub, soaking the front of her faded denim overalls. She flipped the dryer switch off. She unhooked her neon pink spray bottle from her apron loop. She gave the dog a quick mist of detangler and dragged a metal comb through the thick, wet coat. Sly the bulldog snored loud and steady from his cushioned bed in the corner, ignoring the noise entirely. 3 sharp knocks hit the back alley door. Ivy wiped her hands on her apron. Her yellow rubber boots squeaked across the wet linoleum as she walked through the break room. She grabbed the heavy deadbolt, slid it back, and pulled the metal door open. Leo stood in the alleyway. He wore a fresh, tailored charcoal gray suit and a crisp white shirt. His dark hair was swept back from his face. He looked like royalty, standing next to the rusted dumpsters and Ivy's beaten-up cherry-red pickup truck. Your front door is still a sheet of wood, Leo noted. He stepped inside, forcing Ivy to step back. Glass takes time to order, Ivy replied. She shut the heavy door behind him, locking the deadbolt again. And it requires funds, something I am suddenly short on. Leo stopped in the center of the break room. He turned around, his piercing amber eyes locking onto her face. His jaw clenched tight enough to pop the muscle. He sensed the hard shift in her mood. What happened? Elder Cole happened, Ivy said. She walked past him, heading toward the front counter. She pulled the folded lease agreement from her pocket and tossed it onto the register space. Leo picked up the paper. He read the new premium rate. His jaw tightened. Thick veins popped along his neck. He crumpled the paper in his large fist, crushing the bold numbers. Cole bribed Ava. He offered her a rich cash bonus to force me into bankruptcy, Ivy confirmed. She leaned against the counter, crossing her wet arms. He wants me out of town. Leo threw the crumpled paper into the trash bin. I will handle Cole. No, Ivy argued. You handled Finn at the diner and it just made Cole angry. I fight my own battles. I will wash every dog in this county if I have to. I am paying this rent. Leo stepped closer. He placed his large hands flat on the counter. The sapphire stone on his silver pack ring caught the dim light leaking through the plywood gaps. He looked at her freckles, then down at the smudge of soap drying on her plain white t-shirt. There's a charity gala tomorrow night, Leo said. His voice dropped to a low rumble in his chest. The whole town attends. It is the biggest pack event of the year. I skip galas, Ivy said. I wash dogs. Cole is using this event to introduce me to 3 different wolf families, Leo explained. He intends to force a public matchmaking session. He wants to back me into a corner in front of the entire pack. Sounds like a terrible party, Ivy said. I need a date, Leo stated. He looked her right in the eyes. If I bring you, Cole cannot force a match. It will ruin his plan. If she says no, I will endure a night of empty political smiles, and I would rather fight another rogue in the alley. Ivy looked at the towering alpha. He was asking for her help. The man who commanded a whole town needed a human dog groomer to save him from a fancy dinner party. A small smile tugged at her lips. She tapped her fingers against the counter. You want me to walk into a room full of angry werewolves and ruin their night? Yes, Leo said. I will do it, Ivy decided. She pointed a finger at his expensive chest. On one condition. Leo raised a dark eyebrow. Name it. You pay for a brand new glass door, Ivy bargained. A thick one. I want the bent metal frame replaced, and I want it done by Monday. Leo let out a short, genuine laugh. It warmed his amber eyes and relaxed his broad shoulders. You drive a hard bargain. The door is yours. I will pick you up at 7 tomorrow night. Chapter 8. The local dress boutique felt like a different world. It catered to wealthy pack members, offering premium fabrics and elite service. Ivy stood near the front display rack, looking at the formal gowns. She had left her yellow rubber boots at the shop. Today, she wore clean canvas sneakers, a pair of fitted blue jeans, and a simple gray sweater. Her auburn hair rested in its usual plastic claw clip. Lisa, the boutique's lead saleswoman, watched Ivy from behind the polished glass counter. Lisa wore a sharp black dress. Her eyes tracked every inch of Ivy's casual clothes with pure judgment. Can I help you find the exit? Lisa asked. Her tone was thin and polite, but her face showed clear disgust. I need a dress for the charity gala tonight, Ivy said. She ignored the insult and walked over to a rack of long, formal gowns. Those are premium designs, Lisa warned. She stepped out from behind the counter and blocked Ivy from touching the silk fabric. They require a very steep budget. Perhaps you should try the thrift store 2 towns over. It might suit your lifestyle much better. Ivy felt a hot flash of anger hit her chest. She stood tall and looked Lisa straight in the eye. I am buying a dress here. Move out of my way. Lisa sneered. She crossed her thin arms. I do not think so. We cater to a specific clientele. You do not belong in this store. The heavy boutique doors swung open. A small brass bell chimed. Leo stepped inside. He wore a casual black button-down shirt and dark slacks, yet he still looked like he owned the entire building. His piercing amber eyes scanned the room and locked onto Lisa. The saleswoman instantly went pale. She dropped her arms and lowered her head, exposing her neck in a clear sign of wolf submission. Alpha Leo, Lisa stuttered. Welcome. Leo ignored her greeting. He walked straight to Ivy. He stopped close, his broad shoulders blocking Lisa from her view. He tapped his right index finger against his thigh. Is there a problem? Leo asked. His voice sounded low and dangerous. She was just giving me directions to a thrift store, Ivy said. She gave Lisa a sharp, satisfied smile. Leo slowly turned his head. He glared at the saleswoman. The air in the room grew cold and heavy. Bring her the best dresses in the store. Now. Lisa scrambled away, rushing toward the back storage room. Leo turned back to Ivy. You should have told her to shut her mouth. I was about to, Ivy said. You ruined my fun. Lisa returned carrying 3 different gowns. Her hands shook as she hung them on a metal display hook. Ivy looked at the options. One dress caught her attention immediately. It was a stunning, floor-length silk gown. The color was a rich, deep midnight blue. It perfectly matched the paint on Leo's sleek sedan. I want to try that one, Ivy said. She grabbed the wooden hanger and walked into the fitting room. She pulled off her jeans and sweater. The silk felt like cool water against her skin. The dress hugged her waist and flowed down to the floor in a smooth wave. It left her shoulders bare and framed her collarbone. She took out her claw clip and let her messy auburn hair fall loose over her shoulders. She stepped out of the fitting room. Leo stood near the front window. He turned around. He froze in place. His amber eyes widened, taking in the sight of her in the midnight blue silk. He did not say a word. He just stared, his chest rising and falling with a deep breath. I have never seen anything so beautiful in my entire life. Lisa hovered near the counter. It is a very rich piece, Alpha. Shall I ring it up? Leo did not take his eyes off Ivy. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out his leather wallet, and handed Lisa a heavy black card. The price does not matter, Leo said. We are taking it. Ivy walked over to him. She lifted the edge of the silk skirt. You sure about this? I clean up okay, but I am still the girl who wrestles muddy bulldogs. You're exactly who I want, Leo stated. His voice left no room for debate. Chapter 9. The town hall looked like a palace. Giant crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, casting a warm glow over the polished hardwood floor. Round tables covered in crisp white linen filled the room. Waiters in sharp vests carried silver trays holding tiny, fancy appetizers. Ivy walked through the grand double doors. She wore her new midnight blue silk dress. She paired it with a simple pair of black heels she dug out of her closet. Her auburn hair fell in soft, loose waves. She left her pink spray bottle and her tin of paw balm at home. Tonight, her hands were empty. Leo walked beside her. He wore a fresh, tailored charcoal gray suit. His black leather shoes shone under the bright lights. His heavy silver pack ring rested on his right hand. When he offered her his arm, Ivy took it. His muscles felt solid beneath the fine fabric. The moment they entered the ballroom, the lively music seemed to quiet down. Every head in the room turned. Dozens of werewolves stopped talking and stared. The alpha of the pack had arrived, and he brought a human dog groomer on his arm. Angry whispers broke out across the floor. Keep walking, Leo murmured, leaning close to her ear. Do not let them see you hesitate. I deal with barking dogs all day, Ivy replied, keeping her chin up. A room full of staring wolves is not going to scare me. They walked toward a large decorated table near the front stage. Before they could pull their chairs out, an older man blocked their path. Elder Cole. He wore an old-fashioned suit and leaned heavy on a carved wooden cane. His face looked sharp, and his gray eyes held pure malice. He looked Ivy up and down, making sure his disgust was visible to everyone watching. Alpha Leo, Cole said, his rough voice carrying over the music. You brought a guest. We expected you to arrive with someone suitable. She is suitable, Cole, Leo warned. He stepped slightly in front of Ivy, shielding her from the elder. Cole let out a dry, mocking laugh. He tapped his cane against the hardwood floor. She washes animals. She smells of wet fur and cheap soap. This is a charity event for the town's elite, not a place for the hired help. Tell me, human, did you scrub the dirt from your fingernails before you put on that expensive dress? The crowd went dead silent. Everyone waited to see if the human would cry or run away. Ivy stepped out from behind Leo. She stood tall, refusing to shrink away from the cruel elder. She gave Cole a bright, easy smile. I did scrub my nails, actually, Ivy said, her voice clear and loud enough for the back row to hear. It takes a lot of effort to wash away the mud. Speaking of dirt, Ava showed me the new lease agreement you forced her to print. I must say, trying to bankrupt a small business just to win a political game is a very dirty trick. Did you wash your hands after you handed her that bribe? Loud gasps echoed through the ballroom. No one ever spoke to an elder with that kind of disrespect. No one dared to call out their shady deals in public. Cole's face turned bright red. His grip on his wooden cane tightened until his knuckles turned white. He opened his mouth to shout, but no words came out. He was trapped by his own pride. Leo let out a loud, genuine laugh. The deep sound echoed off the high ceiling. He reached out and placed his hand on the small of Ivy's back, pulling her close to his side. She does not need me to protect her. She is a weapon all on her own. If you are done insulting my date, Cole, we would like to get a drink, Leo said. Leo guided Ivy away from the stuttering elder. They walked toward the corner bar, leaving a stunned, whispering crowd behind them. Ivy let out a long breath, feeling the adrenaline shake her hands. She grabbed a glass of ice water from a passing waiter and took a long sip. You just declared war on the lead elder, Leo pointed out. He grabbed a glass for himself. He started it, Ivy said. She set her glass down on a tall table. Besides, I told you I wasn't going to let him bully me. If he wants a fight, he can have one. Chapter 10. The ballroom felt suffocating after Elder Cole's public humiliation. Dozens of eyes tracked Ivy and Leo as they crossed the polished hardwood floor. The lively string quartet played a fast, upbeat tune, but the music failed to mask the sharp whispers of the pack members. Waiters in crisp vests paused their steps, their silver trays catching the light of the grand crystal chandeliers. Ivy took another sip from her water glass. The ice clinked against the crystal rim. She walked with her head held high, letting the midnight blue silk of her dress sweep over the floorboards. She felt the warmth of Leo's hand resting on the small of her back. His touch guided her through the sea of judgmental faces. They reached a set of tall glass doors at the back of the room. Leo pushed the heavy brass handles down and guided her outside. The cold night air hit them the moment the doors shut, cutting off the noise of the party. The stone balcony offered a sweeping view of the dark town below. Ivy walked to the edge and rested her forearms on the carved stone railing. She set her water glass down. A shiver ran down her arms, bringing goosebumps to her bare skin. Leo took off his tailored charcoal gray suit jacket. He draped the fine fabric over her bare shoulders. The lingering warmth from his body chased away the chill. He stepped beside her and rested his hands on the stone railing. His silver pack ring caught the pale moonlight. You made a dangerous enemy tonight, Leo stated. He stared out over the town, his jaw tight. Cole made himself an enemy the moment he bribed Ava and messed with my livelihood, Ivy countered. She pulled the suit jacket closer to her chest. I do not let bullies dictate my life. I wash dogs for a living. I scrub mud off paws. I am not afraid of an old man with a bad attitude and a wooden cane. Leo turned his head to look at her. The moonlight illuminated the sharp angles of his face and the piercing amber of his eyes. The ever-present tension in his broad shoulders seemed to melt away. He let out a long, ragged sigh. He reached up and loosened his silk tie, pulling it away from his throat. The perfect, untouchable alpha act crumbled, leaving behind a man who looked exhausted to his bones. I fight rogues in the alleys, Leo confessed, his voice a low, rough rumble. I secure our borders. I manage the town's finances. But fighting the elders, it drains my soul. They care about bloodlines and power. They never care about the actual people living in this pack. Every day is a chess match I never asked to play. I just want someone to stand beside me, Not behind me. Ivy watched the vulnerability wash over his features. She saw the heavy burden resting on him. He commanded an entire town, yet he stood on this balcony looking more isolated than a stray dog in the rain. She turned to face him. She reached out and placed her hand flat against the center of his chest, right over his crisp white shirt. She felt the steady, rapid thud of his heart beneath her palm. "You do not have to play their game," Ivy told him. Her voice lacked its usual sharp edge. "You are the alpha. You make the rules. Stop letting men like Cole tell you how to run your own life." Leo looked down at her hand on his chest. He lifted his right hand and covered her fingers with his own. His skin felt burning hot against hers. He stepped closer, closing the distance between them. The space shrank to nothing. Ivy tilted her head back to look at his face. "You are a menace," Leo whispered, his amber eyes dropping to her lips. "I prefer the term practical problem solver," Ivy murmured back. Leo lowered his head. He captured her lips in a kiss that erased every thought in her mind. It lacked the tentative hesitation of a first kiss. It hit with the force of a sudden storm. His hand slid to the back of her neck, his fingers tangling in her loose auburn waves. Ivy grabbed the lapels of his white shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss felt like a spark igniting a massive powder keg, burning away the cold night air and leaving a permanent, undeniable mark on them both. Chapter 11. Morning frost coated the windshield of Ivy's rusted, cherry red and primer gray pickup truck. She sat in the driver's seat, gripping the freezing steering wheel with stiff fingers. The engine sputtered, gave a weak choke, and finally died. She let out a frustrated breath. The heater remained broken, offering no relief from the biting chill. She grabbed her keys, pushed the heavy door open, and climbed out. Her waterproof yellow rubber boots hit the frozen puddles in the back alley behind the grooming salon. She wore her usual faded denim overalls over a fresh, long-sleeved white t-shirt. She reached down to check her left pocket, feeling the familiar, reassuring shape of her pocket-sized tin of beeswax paw balm. She unlocked the metal back door and stepped into the break room. Sly the bulldog let out a low, rumbling snore from his padded bed in the corner. Ivy walked past him, heading straight for the front counter. She picked up her neon pink plastic spray bottle, shook it to mix the water and detangler, and hooked it onto her front apron loop. She needed to check the front of the shop. The new glass door installation was scheduled for Monday, meaning the entrance still relied on the thick sheets of plywood Leo hammered into place. Ivy unlocked the side door and stepped out onto the front sidewalk. She stopped dead in her tracks. The plywood boards were no longer plain wood. Bright, violent red paint smeared across the entire surface. The jagged letters spelled out a clear, aggressive warning. "Humans, leave." Beneath the wet paint, deep gouges tore through the wood. Thick, razor-sharp claws had splintered the boards, leaving angry, ragged gashes that went inches deep. The message stood clear. This was not a random prank by a bored teenager. This was a direct threat from the pack. "They want to see me break, but I bend for no one." Ivy stared at the red paint dripping onto the clean concrete sidewalk. A cold knot formed in her stomach, but it quickly morphed into a hot, blazing fire. She did not feel fear. She felt an overwhelming surge of anger. They ruined her door. They bribed her boss to raise her rent to an unaffordable luxury rate. Now, they were vandalizing her property and trying to run her out of the town she called home. She reached into the chest pocket of her overalls and pulled out her smartphone. Her fingers tapped the screen, bringing up Leo's number. She pressed the phone to her ear. It rang twice before he answered. "Ivy," Leo said. His voice sounded thick, like he just woke up. Your pack crossed a line this morning, Ivy stated, keeping her voice dead level. Silence stretched on the other end of the line. Explain. Someone painted a threat on the plywood boarding up my shop, Ivy told him, her eyes tracing the deep claw marks. They told me to leave. They also took the time to shred the wood with their claws. I assume this is Elder Cole's work, or someone trying to impress him after last night. Stay right where you are, Leo ordered. The sleep vanished from his voice, replaced by a dark, lethal edge. Do not touch the boards. Do not let anyone near the shop. I am not going anywhere, Ivy replied. I have appointments starting at 9. Dogs need washing. Paint on a piece of wood does not stop my schedule. Ivy, listen to me, Leo said, his tone turning desperate. This is not a game. A claw mark is a formal challenge in our world. They are threatening your life. Then they better bring a lot more than a can of red paint, Ivy snapped back. She unhooked her neon pink spray bottle from her apron, her thumb resting on the plastic trigger. I am opening my shop. You need to get your people under control, Leo, because if a wolf steps through my door today looking for a fight, I will end them. She ended the call and shoved the phone back into her pocket. She turned around, marched back inside the shop, and locked the side door behind her. Chapter 12. The Pack Meeting Hall. Sat right next door to the grooming salon. It resembled a giant rustic lodge built with thick timber beams and polished wooden benches. Normally, the low hum of Ivy's blow dryers bled through the walls, an annoyance the wolves tolerated. Today, the hall sat in dead silence. Leo stood on the raised wooden platform at the front of the room. He wore a crisp, tailored black suit. He kept his posture rigid and towering. His amber eyes swept over the crowded benches. Every member of the pack sat before him, their faces a mix of curiosity, guilt, and anger. Elder Cole sat in the front row, both hands resting on the curved handle of his wooden cane. Leo raised his right hand. The sapphire crest on his silver ring caught the overhead lights. A formal threat was painted on the grooming salon this morning, Leo announced, his voice booming through the silent hall. Claw marks, red paint, a demand for the human to leave our territory. Murmurs erupted from the back rows. Leo silenced them with a sharp glare. Ivy Davies is under my direct, personal protection, Leo continued, his tone leaving zero room for debate. Her shop is my territory. Any wolf who approaches her with bad intentions will face me. That is not a request. That is an alpha command. Elder Cole drove the tip of his wooden cane into the floorboards. The sharp crack echoed in the room. He stood up, his joints popping. He looked at the crowd, then up at Leo. You use an alpha command to protect a human? Cole mocked, a sneer twisting his wrinkled face. A dog groomer. You shame this pack, Leo. You parade her around our gala. You let her insult your elders. Now you place her above your own kind. You have lost your mind, and you have lost your way. Leo stepped toward the edge of the platform. He balled his hands into tight fists at his sides. I protect the innocent people in this town, Cole. Something you forgot how to do decades ago. I protect our bloodlines, Cole shouted back. He turned to face the crowd, raising his arms to rally their anger. He brings human weakness to our door. He allows a mortal to dictate pack politics. Is this the leader we want? A man distracted by a girl who smells of cheap soap and wet fur. I will tear the throat out of anyone who tries to lay a hand on her. Watch your next words very carefully, Cole, Leo warned, a low, vibrating growl tearing from his chest. Cole turned back around. A triumphant, wicked smile spread across his face. He knew exactly what button he had pushed. I invoke the ancient right. I call for a trial of leadership. Gasps filled the wooden hall. A trial of leadership represented the ultimate challenge. It meant stripping the alpha of his title through a brutal, physical fight. No shifting into wolf form allowed, just bare hands, raw strength, and total dominance. You have no champion, Leo pointed out, standing his ground. You are too old to fight me yourself. I have chosen my champion, Cole declared. He pointed his cane toward the back of the room. A towering man stood up from the shadows. Quinn. He stood taller than Leo, his arms corded with thick, heavy muscle. His face held a flat, merciless expression. He stepped into the aisle and cracked his knuckles, the sound like breaking branches. Quinn fights in my name, Cole stated, his voice dripping with venom. If he wins, you step down. You lose your title, you lose the pack, and that human girl leaves this town forever. Leo looked at the giant champion, then looked back at the elder. He did not hesitate. I accept. Chapter 13. Monday morning brought the loud, grinding noise of power tools to the front of the grooming salon. Ivy stood behind her front counter, her waterproof yellow rubber boots planted firmly on the clean linoleum. A large white commercial truck sat parked at the curb. Two workers in heavy canvas jackets used pry bars to rip the vandalized plywood boards away from the shop entrance. They stacked the red-painted wood against the brick exterior. The bent metal frame followed, tossed into the back of their truck with a loud crash. Ivy whistled a short, sharp note. Sly the bulldog waddled out from the break room. She reached down, scooped his heavy body into her arms, and held him close to her chest so he would not wander near the active work zone. The cold morning draft swept through the open doorway, chilling the exposed skin above her denim overalls. A sleek, midnight blue sedan pulled up right behind the glass company truck. Leo killed the engine and stepped out. He wore a simple black t-shirt and dark jeans today, lacking his usual tailored suit. He walked up the sidewalk, stepping over the workers' toolboxes, and entered the shop through the large opening. One of the workers fired up a power drill to set the brand-new thick metal frame into the concrete. The noise forced Ivy to raise her voice. "They brought the thick glass," Ivy told Leo, pointing to the huge pane resting on padded sawhorses outside. "It looks great." "Thank you." Leo stopped in front of the counter. He looked at the workers, then looked at Ivy holding the bulldog. His face looked tight, his jaw clenched hard. He did not return her polite gratitude. Ivy set Sly down on the floor behind the counter. She pulled the neon pink spray bottle off her apron loop and set it next to the register. She wiped her hands on her thighs. The town gossip moved faster than a wildfire. She already knew the news. "A trial of leadership," Ivy said, getting right to the point. The drill stopped whining, leaving the shop quiet enough for normal conversation. "You agreed to fight a giant named Quinn because of me." "I agreed to fight him because Cole is a corrupt politician who needs to be removed," Leo corrected. "Stop lying," Ivy snapped. She crossed her arms over her chest. Guilt struck her stomach like a sharp needle. She never asked for a war. She just wanted to wash dogs and run her business. "You put your alpha title on a line to protect my shop. If you lose everything." "I will not lose," Leo stated, his amber eyes locking onto hers. "You do not know that," Ivy argued. She stepped around the counter, closing the distance between them. I saw Quinn at the diner last year. He looks like he eats bricks for breakfast. This is not a game, Leo. I am just a groomer. You cannot throw away your entire life just because Cole painted my plywood. I am destroying his world, and I need to push him away before it shatters completely. You are not just a groomer, Leo rumbled. He stepped forward, forcing her to back up until her rubber boots hit the base of the counter. And I am not throwing my life away. I am fighting for it. Call it off, Ivy demanded, her voice cracking. Tell Cole I will pack up my truck and leave town. Ava raised the rent anyway. I cannot afford the premium price. It is over. If I leave, the trial gets canceled. You keep your title. Leo reached out. His large hands gripped her shoulders, his fingers pressing into her denim overalls. He bent down, bringing his face level with hers. You are not leaving this town, Leo ordered, his voice an intense, unwavering vow. You are not running from Cole, and you are sure as hell not pushing me away to save my pride. I fight for what is mine. Let them install the new door. I will handle the trial. He let go of her shoulders, turned around, and walked back out to his car, leaving Ivy staring after him. Chapter 14. Dusk settled over the trees, casting long, twisted shadows across the dirt road. Ivy gripped the cracked steering wheel of her cherry red and primer gray pickup truck. The rusted frame rattled with every pothole. She had driven past the town limits to buy bulk gallons of dog shampoo from a warehouse, and now she just wanted to go home. The broken heater blew a steady stream of freezing air straight into her face. She shivered in her plain white t-shirt and faded denim overalls. The truck engine let out a harsh, metallic grind. It choked, sputtered, and died. Ivy pressed the gas pedal. Nothing happened. The tires rolled to a stop in the center of the deserted road. The headlights flickered once and went dark. The silence of the woods rushed in, broken only by the wind rattling the bare branches. She turned the key in the ignition. The engine offered a weak click. It refused to turn over. Come on, Ivy muttered. She twisted the key again. Another hollow click. A twig snapped in the woods to her left. Ivy stopped turning the key. She looked out the driver's side window. The thick line of pine trees obscured the fading light. A shape moved in the brush. Then another. 3 men stepped out of the tree line and onto the dirt road. They wore torn clothes and lacked winter coats. The cold did not seem to bother them at all. One of the men stepped into the faint moonlight. Ash. The rogue wolf from the alley. His jaw carried a dark purple bruise from Leo's punch, but his eyes burned with a wild, violent energy. He remembered her face. He remembered the sting of the detangler soap. I refuse to die in a vehicle that only plays static on the radio. Ivy reached down and slammed down the manual door locks. The sharp click echoed in the quiet cab. She rolled up her window, sealing the glass tight. She did not have her neon pink spray bottle. She left it on the shop counter. She reached into her left overall pocket and closed her fingers around the small, pocket-sized tin of beeswax paw balm. It was not a weapon, but she gripped it like a stone. "Open the door, human!" Ash called out. He stepped up to the front bumper of the truck. He placed his bare hands on the cold metal hood. "Your alpha is distracted with his own pack politics today. He is not coming for you." "Get off my truck!" Ivy shouted through the glass. The 2 other rogue wolves circled to the passenger side. They tested the door handles. Locked. One of them bared his teeth, letting out a low, guttural snarl that vibrated against the glass. "You smell like his territory," Ash sneered. He walked to the driver's side window and pressed his face near the glass. We kill his pet. We prove he is weak. Then we take the town. Ash raised a thick, jagged rock in his right hand. He pulled his arm back, aiming right for her window. Ivy braced herself, gripping the steering wheel. Before Ash could throw the rock, twin beams of blinding white light cut through the dark woods. A midnight blue sedan roared around the bend. The tires locked, screaming against the dirt and gravel. The car skidded to a halt mere feet from the back bumper of the rusted pickup truck. The driver's side door flew open before the vehicle even settled. Leo stepped out. His piercing amber eyes locked onto Ash. Anger rolled off him in visible waves. He wore his black t-shirt and dark jeans. His silver pack ring with a sapphire crest gleamed in the harsh glare of the headlights. "Step away from the truck," Leo ordered. His voice lacked the boom of an alpha command. It sounded much worse. It carried a calm, lethal promise. Chapter 15. Ash dropped the rock. He turned to face the alpha. The two other rogues abandoned the passenger side of the truck and flanked their leader. 3 against 1. "You broke your own laws," Ash spat, a cruel smile forming on his bruised face. "You left your borders to chase a human girl. You are weak, Leo." Leo did not waste time with words. He closed the distance in 3 long strides. He did not shift into his wolf form. He stayed in his human shape to protect his clothes and keep his advantage of speed. Ash lunged forward, swinging his fists. Leo dodged the first strike, grabbed Ash by his torn shirt collar, and threw him into the dirt. The second rogue attacked from the side. He tackled Leo around the waist, driving him toward the thick trunk of a pine tree. Leo planted his boots into the gravel, stopping their momentum. He drove his elbow down into the rogue's back, forcing the man to drop his grip. Ivy watched through the dirty glass of her truck window. Her heart hammered a frantic, terrified rhythm against her ribs. She kept her hand tight around her tin of paw balm. The third rogue found a rusted iron pipe discarded in the ditch. He picked it up and rushed Leo from a blind spot. "Leo! Behind you!" Ivy screamed, rolling her window down an inch. Leo spun around just as the rogue swung the iron pipe. The metal bar aimed straight for Leo's head. Leo threw his left arm up to block the strike. The iron pipe slammed into Leo's forearm. A loud, sickening crack echoed over the dirt road. The bone snapped. Leo grunted, his face twisting in sharp pain, but he did not fall. He used his right hand, the one wearing the silver pack ring, to grab the rogue by the throat. He lifted the man off his feet and slammed him into the side of the truck bed. The rogue slumped to the ground, unconscious. Ash scrambled back to his feet. He saw Leo holding his broken left arm against his chest. Ash thought he saw an opening. He charged. "I will break every bone in my own body if it keeps her breathing." Leo met the charge. He used his boots to sweep Ash's legs out from under him. Ash hit the dirt hard, gasping for air. Leo planted his knee on Ash's chest, pinning him down. He raised his uninjured right fist, his amber eyes blazing with fury. "Leave," Leo commanded, his voice dark and merciless. "Run far away from my town. If I see your face near her again, I will not stop at a broken jaw." Ash scrambled out from under Leo's knee. He grabbed the remaining conscious rogue, and the 2 men fled into the dark woods, leaving their unconscious friend in the ditch. Leo stood up. His chest heaved. He cradled his broken left arm against his black t-shirt. The bone throbbed, sending hot spikes of pain through his shoulder. He walked over to the driver's side window of the cherry red truck. Ivy rolled the window all the way down. She looked at the unnatural angle of his forearm. The sight hit her like a punch to the gut. "Your arm is broken." It takes 24 hours to set and heal, Leo said through gritted teeth. My car runs. Yours does not. Get in the sedan. Ivy did not argue. She grabbed her keys, pushed her door open, and climbed out into the cold night air. Chapter 16. The ride back to town felt long and tense. Before leaving the dirt road, Leo used his uninjured right hand to text his border guards, ordering them to collect the unconscious rogue from the ditch. Ivy drove the midnight blue sedan. The leather seats offered luxurious warmth, a sharp contrast to her freezing truck. Leo sat in the passenger seat, his dark hair falling over his forehead. He kept his broken left arm braced against his stomach. He stared out the window, his jaw clenched tight to fight the pain. Ivy pulled the car into the driveway of her small single-story house. The paint peeled on the front porch, and the lawn needed a trim, but it offered safety. Come inside, Ivy instructed. She parked the sedan and cut the engine. You need ice, and you need to sit down. Leo followed her inside. The living room held a worn fabric sofa, a faded rug, and a small television. Ivy pointed her yellow rubber boot toward the cushions. Sit, she ordered. Leo dropped onto the sofa. He looked entirely out of place in her modest home, surrounded by mismatched throw pillows and stacks of paperback books. Ivy walked into the kitchen. She grabbed a bag of frozen peas from the freezer and a clean dish towel. She found 2 stiff wooden rulers in a desk drawer and a roll of medical tape. She returned to the living room and knelt on the rug in front of him. Give me your arm, Ivy said. Leo offered his broken limb. Y wrapped the frozen peas in the towel and pressed it against the swelling skin below his black t-shirt sleeve. She placed the wooden rulers on either side of his forearm and bound them tight with the medical tape, creating a makeshift splint. This just keeps the bone still while your wolf healing does the work, Ivy explained. She taped the final edge down. Do not move it. Leo looked at the rulers. He let out a rough sigh. I have a trial of leadership to fight. A broken arm complicates things. You have 24 hours to heal, Ivy reminded him. Until then, you stay on my couch. She stood up and went back to the kitchen. She opened a can of chicken soup, poured it into a saucepan, and turned on the stove. The smell of warm broth filled the small house. She poured the soup into a bowl, grabbed a spoon, and brought it back to the living room. She set it on the coffee table in front of him. Leo looked at the bowl. He reached for the spoon with his left hand, hissed in pain, and dropped it onto the table. He glared at his injured arm like it betrayed him. He commands a whole town, but he cannot figure out how to eat soup with his right hand. Ivy rolled her eyes. She picked up the spoon with her own hand. She sat down on the edge of the coffee table facing him. She scooped up a piece of chicken and held it out. Open, Ivy commanded. Leo stared at the spoon, then looked up at her face. A faint hint of red touched his cheeks. The fearsome alpha, reduced to being fed on a floral sofa. He opened his mouth and accepted the food. I can feed myself, Leo grumbled after swallowing. Sure you can, Ivy replied, scooping up more broth. Now eat your soup, Alpha. You need your strength to fight a giant tomorrow. Chapter 17. Midnight arrived, plunging the house into quiet stillness. A single lamp glowed in the corner of the living room, casting soft, warm light across the faded rug. Ivy remained sitting on the edge of the coffee table. The empty soup bowl sat beside her. She had removed her yellow boots, resting her sock-covered feet on the floor. Leo leaned back against the sofa cushions. His splinted arm rested on a pillow. The pain medicine she forced him to take seemed to take the edge off the sharp ache. His amber eyes watched her every move in the dim light. Why did you come out to that dirt road? Ivy asked, breaking the long silence. How did you even know I was out there? I track your scent, Leo answered. His voice sounded quiet, losing its usual commanding rumble. I memorize it. I know when you are in town, and I know when you leave. Ivy shifted on the table. She crossed her arms over her white t-shirt. That sounds like a terrible habit for an alpha. You should focus on your pack borders, not my truck routes. Leo shook his head. He leaned forward, ignoring the stiff pull of his broken arm. He locked his gaze with hers. The air in the room grew thick and electric. You still do not understand, Leo said. He reached out with his uninjured right hand. His fingers brushed against her knee, the sapphire stone on his ring cold against her denim overalls. My pack borders matter. But my wolf chose his priority the day I walked into your grooming salon. Ivy froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She stared at his serious face. He lacked his usual protective arrogance. He presented zero shields. What are you talking about? Ivy whispered. The mate bond, Leo confessed. He kept his hand on her knee, anchoring her in place. Wolves spend their entire lives waiting for the scent that matches their soul. Some never find it. I walked into your shop to demand silence. You sprayed me with detangler soap and laughed at my teeth. My wolf knew right then. You are my mate, Ivy. She has the power to destroy me right now with a single word. Ivy stared at him. The room spun. The town treaty, the elder politics, the trial of leadership, it all crashed into a new, terrifying perspective. He did not risk his title just to protect a human business. He put his life on the line to defend his soulmate. I am a human, Ivy managed to say. I wash dogs. I drive a rusted truck with no heater. You are the king of this town. This does not make sense. The bond does not care about logic, Leo stated. His thumb traced a slow line across the rough denim on her knee. I do not care about logic. I want you by my side. I want you to mock my growl. I want you to run your shop. I want you. Ivy looked down at his large hand resting on her leg. The truth knocked the wind right out of her lungs. All the banter, all the arguments, all the stolen glances in the diner and the gala. It was never just a game. She reached out and rested her hand over his. She did not pull away. She stayed right there on the coffee table, letting the truth settle into the quiet room. Chapter 18. The morning sun crept through the blinds. Ivy stood in the kitchen, brewing a fresh pot of coffee. Leo remained asleep on the sofa, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. The 24-hour healing cycle required deep rest. She left a glass of water on the table. Knowing her truck was still abandoned on the dirt road, she bypassed her own keyring and grabbed his sedan keys from the counter instead. She drove the midnight blue car to the grooming salon. She needed to check the progress on the new entrance. She parked on the street. The glass company had finished their work. A pristine, thick glass door sat secured inside a solid, brand-new metal frame. It looked perfect. It brought the front of her shop back to life, erasing the red paint and the claw marks. Ivy unlocked the new door and stepped inside the lobby. Elder Cole stood near the front counter. He wore a crisp, old-fashioned suit. Both hands rested on the curved handle of his wooden cane. His gray eyes tracked her movements as she walked across the clean linoleum floor. You look surprised, Cole noted, his rough voice breaking the morning quiet. I am just wondering how a man with a cane slipped past a locked deadbolt, Ivy replied. She walked behind the counter, keeping the register between them. I own the building, Cole stated. Ava handed over the keys when she sold me the deed. This property belongs to me now. Ivy narrowed her eyes. She reached into her pocket, touching her tin of paw balm. "What do you want, Cole?" Cole lifted his cane and pointed it at the register. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a crisp white envelope. He slid it across the counter. It stopped right next to her neon pink spray bottle. "Open it," Cole ordered. Ivy picked up the envelope. She tore the flap open and pulled out a single sheet of paper. A bank check. She looked at the number printed in bold black ink. It offered a luxurious sum. It represented enough wealth to buy a brand new house, a top-tier grooming salon in a bright city, and a flawless car with a working heater. It offered an entirely new life. "Take the funds," Cole offered, a smug smile twisting his face. "Pack your tools. Leave this town today. If you vanish before noon, I will cancel the trial of leadership. Leo keeps his title, and you get to live like a queen, far away from our kind." Ivy stared at the check. The number dared her to accept it. She thought about her rusted truck. She thought about Ava betraying her. She thought about the rogue wolves in the woods. Then she thought about Leo sitting on her floral sofa, eating chicken soup and offering his soul to her in the dark. "My life belongs to me, and it is not for sale." Ivy looked Cole right in the eyes. She gripped the edges of the thick paper check. She ripped it in half. The crisp tear echoed in the quiet shop. She stacked the halves and ripped them again, turning the luxurious offer into worthless pieces of trash. She dropped the shredded paper onto the counter. "I am not leaving," Ivy stated, her voice steady and clear. "You can keep your money. Tell your giant champion to get ready for a fight, because Leo is going to break him in half." Chapter 19. Elder Cole turned his back and walked out through the pristine new glass door, his wooden cane tapping a sharp rhythm against the linoleum as he headed straight for a waiting black town car. He left the shredded pieces of his premium bribe scattered across the front counter. Ivy did not waste a single second watching him leave. A sharp spike of guilt pierced her chest. She spun around and sprinted toward the break room. She had abandoned her shop yesterday at dusk. The rogue attack forced her to stay at her house all night to tend to Leo's broken arm. She had left Sly alone for over 14 hours. Ivy pushed the metal door open. "Sly!" A low, pathetic whine answered her. The bulldog sat huddled in the corner near his padded bed. A yellow puddle stained the floor tiles near the back exit. Sly tucked his chin to his chest, looking up at her with large, apologetic eyes. He had tried to hold it, but the long night offered him no choice. "Oh, buddy, I am so sorry," Ivy said. She dropped to her knees, ignoring the dirt on her faded denim overalls. She pulled the dog into her arms, letting his thick, wrinkled head rest against her shoulder. She scratched behind his ears, offering gentle praise. She stood up, grabbed a mop from the supply closet, and quickly cleaned the mess. She filled his metal bowl to the brim with fresh kibble and topped off his water dish. Sly ate with frantic, starving energy, crunching the food loud enough to echo in the small room. Ivy watched him eat, making sure he was safe and secure, before locking the back office door. She had a fight to stop. She ran out the front entrance, climbed into Leo's midnight blue sedan, and drove toward the town square. The trial grounds occupied a wide, circular dirt clearing near the edge of the woods. Tiered wooden bleachers formed a ring around the combat pit. Hundreds of pack members filled the seats, their faces tight with anticipation. The morning air carried a biting chill, freezing the breath that plumed from their mouths. Ivy parked the sedan on the grass and pushed her way through the standing crowd. Her waterproof yellow rubber boots crunched against the frosted gravel. She reached the front wooden barrier just as the combatants stepped into the dirt. Leo stood in the center of the ring. He wore only dark denim jeans and black boots. He had used a knife to slice his black t-shirt away to avoid disturbing the splint, leaving his torso fully bare and exposing a map of pale, old scars tracking across his ribs. His left forearm remained bound in the stiff wooden rulers and white medical tape Ivy had applied the night before. His skin looked pale, his jaw locked tight against the throbbing pain of the broken bone. He held his injured arm close to his stomach, refusing to let it hang loose. Quinn stepped into the circle across from him. The champion looked like a towering wall of solid muscle. He lacked a shirt as well, showing off thick, corded shoulders and a broad chest. He cracked his knuckles, the loud popping echoing in the quiet square. Elder Cole stood on a raised wooden platform overlooking the pit. He banged his cane against the floorboards to silence the whispers. "The rules are ancient and unbreakable," Cole shouted, his rough voice carrying over the wind. "No shifting into wolf form. Bare hands only. The fight ends when one man yields or when one man can no longer stand. Begin." Quinn did not hesitate. He charged forward, kicking up clouds of brown dust. He threw a brutal, sweeping punch aimed straight at Leo's ribs. Leo ducked. His speed remained unmatched, but the sudden movement jerked his broken arm. A sharp hiss of pain escaped his teeth. He planted his right boot and drove his uninjured right fist into Quinn's stomach. The impact sounded like a bat hitting a wet sack of flour. Quinn grunted, but the blow barely slowed him down. He reached out and grabbed Leo by the shoulder, spinning the alpha around. Quinn aimed his next strike right at the splinted left forearm. Leo twisted away just in time, taking the glancing blow to his bicep instead of the broken bone. He countered with a swift kick to Quinn's knee, forcing the larger man to stumble backward into the dirt. The crowd roared, a mix of cheers and angry shouts. Quinn recovered his footing. He spit a stream of blood onto the ground. His flat, merciless expression shifted into a dark sneer. He realized Leo's right arm was too fast to beat in a fair fight. Quinn reached down toward the top of his tall leather boot. His fingers wrapped around a hidden leather hilt. He pulled his hand up, revealing a long, wicked hunting knife. The morning sun caught the polished metal. Silver. Chapter 20. A collective gasp swept through the wooden bleachers. Pack members stood up, pointing at the gleaming metal in the champion's hand. Silver burned their skin on contact, searing the flesh and halting their rapid healing process. Bringing a blade to a bare-handed trial violated the oldest laws of their kind. "He has a weapon!" a voice shouted from the back row. Elder Cole stood on the platform, his hands resting on his wooden cane. He saw the silver blade. He watched the sunlight glint off the sharp edge. He did not say a word. He did not bang his cane to stop the fight. He let the cheating continue, determined to see Leo fall no matter the cost. Leo backed away, putting distance between himself and the blade. He kept his broken left arm tucked tight against his ribs. He raised his right hand, tracking the weapon with narrow, calculating amber eyes. Quinn slashed the air, forcing Leo to dodge backward again. The silver tip missed Leo's bare chest by a fraction of an inch. Ivy gripped the top of the wooden barrier separating the crowd from the fighting pit. Her knuckles turned white. She watched Quinn back Leo toward the edge of the ring. The alpha was fast, but he could not block a silver knife with one good arm. He needed a shield, or he needed a distraction. I did not rip up a fortune just to watch him die in the dirt. Ivy did not wait for the pack to intervene. She acted. She vaulted over the wooden barrier. Her feet hit the soft, churning dust of the combat ring. She stood 20 yards behind Quinn. The giant champion kept his focus entirely on Leo, unaware of the human running up behind him. Ivy stopped moving. She balanced on her right leg. She reached down with both hands, grabbed the heel of her left yellow rubber boot, and yanked it off her foot. The cold morning air instantly soaked through her white cotton sock. She gripped the thick rubber shaft of the boot. She planted her feet firm in the dirt, wound her arm back, and hurled the footwear with every ounce of strength in her shoulders. The bright yellow object spun through the air. It crossed the distance in a blur of color. The solid rubber heel smacked Quinn directly on the side of his head. The loud, wet thud echoed across the silent square. Quinn blinked. The unexpected impact broke his concentration. He stumbled a single step to the side, lowering the silver blade for just a fraction of a second as he turned his head to see what hit him. Leo seized the opening. He lunged forward, ignoring the throbbing agony in his broken left arm. He drove his right fist straight up in a brutal uppercut, catching Quinn right under the jaw. The champion's head snapped back. Before Quinn could recover, Leo swept his right leg, kicking Quinn's boots out from under him. Quinn crashed onto his back. A cloud of brown dust plumed into the air. The silver knife slipped from his grip, landing harmlessly in the dirt. Leo stepped forward and kicked the blade away. It spun across the ground, stopping near the wooden barrier. He dropped his knee onto Quinn's broad chest, pinning the giant to the earth. Leo raised his uninjured right fist, his knuckles covered in dirt and blood. His chest heaved, pulling in ragged breaths. "Yield," Leo commanded, his voice dark and demanding. Quinn stared up at the alpha's furious amber eyes. He felt the crushing pressure on his ribs. He raised his hand and slapped his palm against the dirt twice, signaling his total submission. The fight was over. Ivy stood near the edge of the ring. She kept her chin up, ignoring the freezing cold seeping into her socked foot. Her faded denim overalls were coated in a fine layer of dust. She looked across the dirt pit and locked eyes with Leo, waiting for the fallout. Chapter 21. Silence descended upon the dirt clearing. The wind rustled the bare pine branches, but no one in the wooden bleachers dared to make a sound. Leo stood up, stepping off the defeated champion. He kept his left arm pressed against his ribs, protecting the splinted bone. He took a deep, steadying breath, letting the chaotic adrenaline fade from his blood. A wolf in the front row dropped to his knees and bared his neck. The movement started a chain reaction. Dozens of pack members fell to the ground, bowing their heads in a wave of ultimate submission. They recognized their alpha, and they recognized his undisputed victory. "The trial is void!" Elder Cole screamed. The elder slammed his wooden cane against the platform railing. The sharp cracks cut through the quiet air. Cole's face was bright red, his gray eyes bulging with uncontained fury. He pointed a trembling finger at the combat ring. "She stepped into a sacred circle!" Cole shouted, his rough voice cracking with rage. "She threw a shoe! Human interference breaks the ancient law. The victory does not count." Leo turned his back on the elder. He did not argue. He did not shout back. He walked slowly across the dusty arena, his boots crunching over the packed dirt. He stopped right in front of Ivy. She stood her ground, her left foot resting gently on the cold earth, wrapped only in a thin white sock. She looked up at his bare, scarred chest and his bruised face. Leo reached out with his right hand. He wrapped his long fingers around the back of her neck, his thumb resting over her racing pulse. He pulled her close to his side, tucking her against his right hip, far away from his broken left arm. His skin radiated immense heat, warming her freezing shoulder. Leo turned to face the kneeling pack and the screaming elder. "She is not a human interference," Leo declared. His voice carried a calm, lethal resonance that boomed over the crowd, requiring no effort at all. "She is my mate." A collective gasp rippled through the bleachers. Heads snapped up, eyes widened. The wolves stared at the human dog groomer in faded denim overalls, realizing the truth behind the alpha's relentless protection of her small shop. "I claim Ivy Davies as the Luna of this pack," Leo continued, his amber eyes locking onto Cole. "Her fight is my fight. Her enemies are my enemies. She stood in this circle to protect the honor you tried to destroy with a hidden silver blade. If anyone wishes to challenge her place by my side, you can step into the dirt right now." Let the old man choke on his own rules. She is the only law I recognize now. Cole opened his mouth, but the words failed him. He looked down at Quinn, still coughing in the dust. He looked at the silver knife resting near the wooden wall. He looked at the hundreds of wolves kneeling in the dirt, their loyalty firmly cemented to the alpha, who won the fight despite a broken limb. The elder lowered his cane. His shoulders slumped, his political power shattered into 1,000 useless pieces. No one stepped forward. No one challenged the claim. Leo looked down at Ivy. A small, genuine smile touched the corners of his mouth. "You lost your shoe," Leo noted, his voice dropping to a low, private rumble, meant only for her. "It hit its target," Ivy replied. She looked up at him, a matching smile pulling at her lips. "I consider it a fair trade." Leo let out a short, tired laugh. He kept his hand on her neck, guiding her toward the edge of the arena. One of the pack members scurried forward, picked up the yellow rubber boot from the dirt, and offered it to her with a deeply respectful bow. Chapter 22. The drive away from the trial grounds felt surreal. Ivy sat behind the wheel of the midnight blue sedan, her yellow rubber boots resting near the pedals. Leo sat in the passenger seat. He guided her past the town limits, directing her toward a dense section of the pine forest. They pulled into a long, winding driveway paved with smooth, dark stones. Leo's private house emerged from the trees. It was a stunning piece of modern architecture, featuring sharp angles, rich dark wood siding, and towering floor-to-ceiling glass windows that overlooked a private valley. Ivy parked the car and cut the engine. They walked inside. The interior matched the outside. Sleek hardwood floors, minimalist furniture, and a kitchen featuring dark granite countertops. The house felt vast, quiet, and firmly isolated from the chaotic town politics. The moment the solid front door clicked shut, the adrenaline left them both. Ivy immediately kicked off her dusty yellow rubber boots, leaving them on the entryway mat. Leo braced his uninjured right hand against the kitchen island. His broad shoulders hunched forward. His bare chest, slick with sweat and dust from the combat pit, heaved with slow, ragged breaths. The pain from his broken arm, masked by the thrill of the fight, returned with a vicious bite. Ivy stood near the entryway. She felt the grime coating her skin. She had worn the same faded overalls and white t-shirt for 2 straight days. Her hair, still secured in its plastic claw clip, felt stiff with dust. She walked over to the sink, grabbed a clean glass from the cupboard, and filled it with cold tap water. She set the glass on the counter near his right hand. "Drink," Ivy instructed. Leo picked up the glass and drained the water in a single long swallow. He set the cup down and looked at her. His amber eyes traced the smudge of dirt on her cheek, the exhaustion lining her face, and the stubborn set of her jaw. The reality of the mate bond settled over the quiet room. He had claimed her in front of the entire pack. He had tied her human life to his violent, complicated world. "You can still leave," Leo said. His voice sounded raw, strict of all its alpha authority. Ivy froze. She crossed her arms over her chest, her fingers gripping the rough denim of her overalls. "What did you just say?" "The trial is over," Leo explained, refusing to look away from her. "Cole has no power left. You are safe. Your shop is safe. The pack will never bother you again. If you want to walk out that door, go back to your house, and just be a dog groomer, I will let you go. I will not force you to stay in a world that requires you to throw boots at armed giants." He fought a towering champion with one arm, yet he is terrified I might walk out his front door. Ivy stared at him. She saw the genuine fear in his eyes. He thought he was a burden. He thought his world was too dangerous for her fragile human skin. She crossed the kitchen, stopping just inches from his bare chest. "Cole came to the shop this morning," Ivy told him, watching his amber eyes widen slightly. "He offered me a blank check. Enough money to buy a new shop, a new house, and a new truck. He told me if I left town before noon, he would cancel the trial and let you keep your title." Leo went perfectly still. He looked down at her face, his chest rising with a sharp intake of breath. "I ripped it up and left the pieces on my counter," Ivy stated. Her voice was steady and clear. "I chose to stay. So stop trying to give me an exit, Alpha. I am exactly where I want to be." Chapter 23. Ivy stood inches from his bare chest. The dust from the combat pit coated his skin, mixing with sweat and fresh bruises. She raised her hand, resting her fingertips against his right collarbone, feeling the rapid beat of his pulse. Leo looked down at her. His amber eyes burned with raw, primal hunger. He wanted to pull her against him, to bury his face in her auburn hair, but the splint on his left forearm held him back. The wooden rulers and medical tape bound his fractured bone, a stark reminder of the trial. "You are covered in dirt," Leo rumbled, his voice a low, vibrating hum that echoed through the quiet kitchen. "So are you," Ivy countered. She ran her thumb along his jawline. "But the sun is setting. Your 24 hours are up." Leo closed his eyes. He focused on the dull ache in his left arm. The sharp, blinding pain from the iron pipe had faded to a tight itch beneath his skin. The wolf blood worked its final magic, fusing the bone back together, weaving the torn tissue whole. He opened his eyes. He reached over with his right hand and grabbed the edge of the medical tape. He ripped it away in one swift pull. The tape tore, and the wooden rulers clattered against the dark granite countertop. Leo rotated his left wrist. He flexed his fingers, testing the repaired limb. The bone held firm. He possessed 2 working arms again. "I am not holding back a single fraction of an inch anymore." Leo stepped forward, crowding her against the edge of the kitchen island. He reached down, his large hands gripping the brass clasps of her faded denim overalls. He unhooked them with practiced ease. The rough blue fabric slid down her arms, pooling at her feet on the sleek hardwood floor. Ivy grabbed the hem of her plain white t-shirt and pulled it over her head, tossing it onto the discarded overalls. The cool evening air brushed her bare shoulders, but the intense heat radiating from Leo's skin chased the chill away. Leo scooped her into his arms, lifting her off the floor with zero effort. Ivy wrapped her legs around his waist, anchoring herself as he carried her down the hallway. He kicked his bedroom door open, stepping into a room bathed in the soft silver light of the rising moon. He set her down on the edge of a vast, dark wood bed. The silk sheets felt cool against her back as she leaned against the pillows. Leo leaned over her, caging her between his arms. He traced the line of her collarbone, his touch igniting a trail of fire across her skin. His scent wrapped around her, sandalwood and sweat, a heady mix that made her dizzy. He lowered his head, capturing her lips. The kiss held no gentle restraint. It tasted of adrenaline, desperation, and total surrender. Ivy tangled her fingers into his dark, sweeping hair. She pulled him closer, her chest flush against his bare, scarred torso. The friction of his hot skin against hers sent electric shocks down her spine. Leo broke the kiss, trailing his lips down her jaw, pressing open-mouthed kisses along the sensitive column of her neck. He unfastened his dark jeans, tossing them aside. "Tell me to stop," Leo whispered against her skin, his breath hot and ragged. "Give me the word, and I will back away." "If you step back, I will throw my other boot at you," Ivy gasped, tilting her head to give him better access. "Claim me, Leo. Now." A deep, territorial growl tore from his chest. His amber eyes flared gold in the moonlight. He pushed her messy auburn hair aside, exposing the crook of her neck. He pressed his nose against her pulse point, taking a long, deep breath. He worshipped the skin there, dragging his tongue over the racing vein. Ivy gripped his broad shoulders. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a drum. She felt the sharp prick of his elongated fangs grazing her collarbone. The anticipation curled tight in her stomach, building into a frantic ache. Leo sank his teeth into her flesh. A sharp gasp escaped Ivy's lips. The initial sting vanished in an instant, replaced by a rushing flood of pure, searing heat. The mate bond snapped into place, a tangible wire connecting her mind to his. She felt his fierce, protective love, his exhaustion, his undeniable devotion pouring straight into her veins. It felt like a rush of pure oxygen after drowning. She held him tight, her fingernails pressing half-moons into his back. Leo deepened the bite, sealing the claim. Their bodies moved together, matching a primal, urgent rhythm that washed away the dirt and chaos of the day. When he broke the connection, he rested his forehead against hers. He licked a small drop of blood from the fresh mark on her neck, his chest heaving. He stroked her cheek, his thumb catching a stray tear of overwhelming emotion that escaped her eye. "Mine," Leo breathed, his voice a possessive vow. "Yours," Ivy whispered back, pulling him down into another consuming kiss. Chapter 24. The silver light of dawn crept through the large glass windows of Leo's bedroom. Ivy woke up with her head resting on a soft pillow, the smooth silk sheets tangled around her legs. She shifted her weight, feeling the warm bond hum in her chest. Leo lay beside her, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. The bruises on his ribs had faded to faint yellow marks. His left arm looked strong and straight. The 24-hour healing window had closed, and the wolf within him had finished its work. Ivy sat up. She realized she had no clean clothes. Her faded denim overalls and white t-shirt lay in a heap on the dark wood floor, covered in the brown dust of the combat pit. She stood up and walked to Leo's closet. She pulled out a clean black button-down shirt and a pair of gray fleece sweatpants. The fabric of the shirt felt cool and smooth, while the pants swallowed her legs completely. She rolled up the sleeves and tightened the drawstring as far as it would go. Leo stirred as she moved. He opened his amber eyes and watched her. A slow smile spread across his face. "That shirt looks better on you," Leo rumbled. His voice held a rough, mourning edge. "We have to go to the shop," Ivy said. She walked back to the bed and sat on the edge. "Sly is still there, and Cole still has the deed. I want my life back, Leo." Leo sat up and swung his legs off the bed. He grabbed a pair of dark jeans from a chair. Cole thinks he won the legal game because he bought out Ava. He forgot that a pack leader has ways to make a man sign a piece of paper. They left the house and climbed into the midnight blue sedan. Ivy drove, the cuffs of the oversized sweatpants pooling over her yellow rubber boots as she pressed the pedals. They navigated the winding forest roads and entered the town. The streets were quiet. The wolves they passed lowered their heads in respect, recognizing the new Luna behind the wheel. They arrived at the grooming salon. The pristine glass door reflected the morning sun. Ivy unlocked it and stepped inside. The air smelled of dog shampoo and the faint, lingering scent of red paint from the plywood boards that used to be there. "Sly!" Ivy called out. The bulldog waddled out from the break room. He let out a loud, joyous bark and wiggled his whole body. He trotted over to Ivy and sat on her boot, looking up with a proud expression. Ivy scratched his thick neck. She saw the shredded pieces of the bribe check still scattered on the counter. The front door chimed. Elder Cole stepped inside. He looked small and tired. He no longer held his head high. He leaned on his wooden cane, his gray eyes fixed on the floor. In his right hand, he held a thick manila folder. "I expected you," Cole said. His voice sounded thin. Leo stepped forward, his broad shoulders blocking the light from the window. He looked at the folder. "The trial proved you are a cheat, Cole. You brought silver to a bare-handed fight. That is a crime against the pack. I could strip your status and cast you out of this town today." Cole flinched. He set the folder on the counter, right next to the fragments of the check. "I know. I also know Ivy ripped up the funds I offered. She is as stubborn as a mule." He thinks a piece of paper can stop a woman with a spray bottle and a stubborn alpha. Ivy walked around the counter. She picked up the folder and opened it. The deed to the building sat inside. It carried Ava's signature and the official seal of the town. "I am not a mule," Ivy said. "I am the owner of this business, and I am staying." "Sign it over to her," Leo ordered. He pulled out his high-end smartphone, tapped the screen a few times, and set the device on the counter, showing a confirmed, luxurious bank transfer. "That is the amount Ava wanted for her retirement, wired directly to your PAC accounts. I am paying for the building, but you are signing the deed to Ivy. Now." Cole did not argue. He pulled a pen from his pocket. His hand shook as he scrawled his name on the transfer line. He pushed the folder toward Ivy. "It is done," Cole muttered. He turned around and walked out the door, his cane clicking a slow, defeated beat on the sidewalk. Ivy looked at the paper. Her name sat next to the title of the building. The grooming salon was hers. She looked at Leo, then back at the shop she had fought to keep. "Luna," Leo whispered. Ivy grinned. She picked up her pink spray bottle from the counter, gripping it like a loaded weapon. "I have a lot of work to do. And Leo, you still owe me for the door." Chapter 25. 3 months passed with the speed of a summer storm. The town settled into a new rhythm under Leo's rule. The elders no longer dictated the marriages of the pack, and the humans walked the streets without the fear of being pushed aside. Ivy stood at her metal grooming table. The shop sparkled under the warm overhead lights, carrying a welcoming energy that filled the bright lobby. She had replaced the broken display of dog treats with a new, dark wood shelf. The front glass door stayed clean, reflecting the busy street outside. She wore a pair of new denim overalls and a green t-shirt. Her auburn hair stayed pinned up with a plastic claw clip. She held a pair of clipping shears, carefully trimming the fur of a small white poodle. Outside the window, her cherry red and primer gray pickup truck sat parked at the curb. The engine had a new starter, and the heater finally blew hot air. Leo had spent a full weekend under the hood, his hands covered in oil, making sure the rusted vehicle would never leave her stranded again. She turns my pack meetings into background noise, and I have never been happier. In the pack hall next door, Leo sat at the head of a long wooden table. He wore a tailored charcoal gray suit. His dark hair was swept back, and his amber eyes tracked the maps spread out before him. Cole had moved to a smaller house on the edge of town, leaving a vacant seat at the table. Leo listened to his advisors talk about territory borders and winter food supplies. He tapped his right index finger against his thigh. He felt the steady hum of the mate bond in his chest. It pulled at him, drawing his attention to the wall shared with the grooming salon. Then he heard it. The high-pitched whine of the blow-dryer started up. The sound vibrated through the timber beams of the pack hall. One of the advisors stopped talking and looked at the wall, a frown forming on his face. "That noise is very loud, Alpha," the advisor noted. "Should we ask her to pause for the meeting?" Leo looked at the man. A sharp, amused glint appeared in his eyes. "No, that sound means the Luna is at work. It stays." Leo stood up from the table. "Continue the report without me. I have an appointment." He walked out of the hall and stepped onto the sidewalk. The afternoon sun felt warm on his face. He pushed open the glass door of the grooming salon. The bell chimed, a bright, clear sound. Ivy looked up from the poodle. She gave a gentle shush to keep the dog still. "You are early. The meeting cannot be over yet." "I missed my mate," Leo said. He walked behind the counter. He saw Sly the bulldog sleeping in the sun near the window, his chest rising and falling. Leo reached out and rested his hand on Ivy's waist. He felt the mark on her neck through the fabric of her shirt, a permanent bond that tied them together. He leaned down and pressed a kiss to her temple. "The pack is complaining about the noise again," Leo whispered. Ivy turned off the dryer. She leaned against him, her head resting on his broad shoulder. "Tell them to buy earplugs. Or better yet, tell them I have a special on flea baths this week. They could use the scrubbing." Leo laughed. The sound was deep and full, filling the shop with a warmth that had nothing to do with the heater in the truck outside. He looked at his mate, the woman who laughed at his growl and fought his enemies with a rubber boot. "I think I will keep the noise," Leo said. He stayed in the shop, helping her finish the poodle. The Alpha and the Luna worked side by side, surrounded by the hum of the dryers and the happy grunts of a bulldog. The town belonged to them, and for the first time in his life, Leo felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. Ivy grabbed her spray bottle and gave the poodle a final mist. She looked at Leo and winked. "Make me do it again," she joked. Leo grinned, his amber eyes glowing. "Every single day, Ivy. Every single day." Would you like me to generate a celebratory image of Leo and Ivy standing in front of their newly repaired shop to mark the end of the story? Quick favor, don't go anywhere yet. If you thought Ivy was brave for spraying the Alpha in the face with dog detangler and throwing a rubber boot to save his life, wait until you meet the heroine in this next story on your screen. You have to hear this disaster unfold. Click the video on your screen right now. It is pure chaos.